Here's a short recap of part 2 of the Frogger mini-series. First, we created the input mapping context file that we use to store all of our actions as well as our key bindings. Next, we'll create our input actions for our player movement and jumping. We'll call our first action IA_leap and our second action IA_movement. We'll set the value type as digital boolean for the leap action and axis 2D for our movement action. Now that we have our input actions created, we can assign them inside our input mapping context file. Hit the plus sign to add slots in the IMC and assign our two input actions for those slots. Once we have our actions assigned, we can add in all the key bindings we want to use for each of these actions. Starting with the IA_leap, we can hit the keyboard record button and press the spacebar to map the key binding for that leap action. For our movement, we'll add the WSAD key bindings. For the W and S keys, we'll add in a modifier called swizzle input axis values. This will allow us to assign Y values to the W and S keys, while the default X values will get applied to the A and D keys, giving us our two-dimensional axis setup. Next, we'll add the negate modifier to the S and A key bindings, so we can get the negative Y and negative X values for our 2D axis setup. Finally, we'll open up the player blueprint and assign the input mapping context we just created for the player. Simply call the event receive controller change node and cast to the player controller node. Pull off the blue pin into the enhanced input local player subsystem, then pull off that blue pin into the add mapping context node. Hook up the execution pins and set the IMC Frogger mapping context we created earlier. To test all this out, simply call the enhanced input action IA_movement and pull into a print string and pass your X and Y values into an append node that feeds into the print string node. Now play the prototype and test your control scheme out to see if it works. And just like that, we've created our enhanced input system for our Frogger prototype. Stay tuned for part 3.